Hello everyone, we are back live and welcome to our second Dynex AMA. This is Kara. You may remember me from the previous session. We are paying a great attention to our user questions and looking forward to get answers from our today host. Let's welcome again our legendary Sumitomo, the founder of Dynex. How are you?
Hello, thank you very much. Apologies for the technical difficulties. I think now everything should be fine.
Hello? Unfortunately, I'm not able to hear anything. Hello? Yes. So, how are you doing? I think now we should be all online. So, uh, where were we? I think around like 10 weeks has passed since our last TAMA, and we have noticed a great blockchain stability. Can you give us an update on what is happening at Dynex and how is it going?
Absolutely, and with pleasure. So I have prepared a little slide to basically overview and showcase what has happened in the last 10 weeks. And these 10 weeks, when we were putting it together, they feel like almost like 10 months because there's on all different aspects a lot of stuff happening, right? From the mining perspective, as everyone has witnessed, we have now two commercial miners, SRB and one zero miner, supporting our Dynex Solve algorithm. There's two more upcoming, very exciting. We introduced solution rewards. We have best hash rate ever. So there's a lot of stuff happening on the mining side. It's much more stable than it was ever. It's much faster. We can perform more work, etc. Also on the pool side, we have new pools in the last 10 weeks. So Circ pool, JJ pool, Go pool cached, and there's 666 pool upcoming. There's three more in the works looking at it. We have done a lot of stuff in the infrastructure side. We updated the core, we updated the web wallet, we launched and created and refined the GUI unit wallet, for example. Then again, about the parallel jobs, the scalability of Mallob. I mean, we went through a lot. And we also tuned around appearance, and we're gonna get to the details a little bit later, right? So the website got a facelift. We issued the Dynex Solve paper. We published showcase videos. We show now real-time jobs. We have a leaderboard. I mean, the system is actually in a pretty good state. We can post jobs. We can run jobs, multiple jobs in parallel, smaller ones, larger ones. We can see what's happening, the payouts, everything is there. Actually, only the only thing missing in order to have a full cycle end to end and self-service would be the marketplace, but we are working on that, and we get to that a little bit later. We also have now two more exchanges. Last time we were only on TX, but now we got also Joker and B2B. And there was a voting about another listing. I'm going to address this a little bit later. And we started the first, let's say, experiments with the marketing agency. And if you look at it from a power, a computer power perspective, we have here a little chart. It showcases basically last time when we had the AMA, right? That was the hash rates, a little bit less than 5M. And ever since then, especially thanks to the commercial miners, this hash rate increased significantly. Now, what does this mean for us? For us, it means the more hash rate, the more proof of useful work we can perform, because the faster the computations are running, the more chips we are having. So this is actually amazing for the whole network. And then also from a pricing perspective, I know usually we do not speak about prices of the coin, but nevertheless, we wanted to show, right, also here is the 10-week, this is since the 10-week, here from AMA 001 until now. Overall, steadily growing. Obviously, would like to see it growing even further and further and further. But in general, we made quite good progress over the last 10 weeks.
Amazing. Seems that you have achieved great milestones. Many people still don't quite understand how do neuromorphic computations work. Would you be so kind and explain it for dummies?
So basically, neuromorphic computation or dummies. Yeah. Well, I knew this question is coming up, and I tried to put together a little story which could outline, what is the difference between traditional computation and neuromorphic computation. And let me jump right into it. And I like to tell the story about Treasure Island. So Treasure Island is an island where somebody buried a treasure, right? And this is basically the analogy to a computational problem. So the island is the computational problem with all its complexity, and the treasure would represent the solution. Now we start with the first one getting into the treasure hunt, so to say. So we have Robot 1. So Robot 1 wants to find the treasure. So what is he doing? Robot 1 goes from the very first beginning and then line by line starts digging and digging and digging and digging, and eventually, obviously, he will find the treasure. That approach is traditionally known as brute force. Now, obviously, as you can see, depending where the treasure is, it is not a very efficient approach. And since a while, there has been the alternative approaches, and I want to introduce Robot 2. So Robot 2 is smarter than Robot 1, and Robot 2 tries something else. He says, okay, if I look at the treasure map, right, I can see here there are mountains, and there's a little lake. So the treasure most likely is not in the lake. It's also not underneath of the palm trees, and it's also probably not alongside the shorelines because it could go washed away. So he basically applies some logic to his search and starts searching the areas of most interest. And that is called heuristics. So this is basically the current approach. So whenever there's, let's say, for example, an optimization problem, heuristic in different shapes and forms are being applied in order to find the treasure. Now let me introduce Dynex. Dynex starts digging at a certain point, and then when he realizes there is no treasure, he performs a jump, continues to dig, does another jump, until he finds the treasure. And this jump is what we call the instantonic jump. So rather than doing brute force, rather than doing heuristics, it's being guided by instantonic behavior and long-range order of the neuromorphic chips. Now, it can be also a little bit more technical, and there is a research paper on it, but this here will show you how the phase space is basically pruned. And you can see here over the time that the voltages of the gates, of the logic gates, that's the digging process basically, is jumping up and down and down. Then there's instantonic jump. It digs again, the local minima is decreasing, it jumps again, jumps again, jumps again. So what does this mean? That has significant impact on the complexity. So brute force, currently one of the best known algorithms is from Schöning, and it basically reduces a 2 power n complexity to a 1.3334 power n complexity. That's basically very, very long. So if you take, for instance, job number 3 with 220,000 variables, that's actually longer than the universe exists, right? So that's actually impossible. Heuristic, on the other side, has exponential lower bounds. So basically it means it's very helpful for smaller type of problems. Also depends obviously on the complexity of the problem. But as the problem size grows, also the complexity grows exponentially. And neuromorphic approaches, and this is actually quite interesting, therefore, because of these instantonic jumps, scales linear in time and in memory. And that's what we are basically utilizing. And we have here the references for interested readers. But long story short, Treasure Island is our approach, how we try to explain how neuromorphic computations work compared to traditional approaches which are currently existing.
That was a really great explanation. I was trying to contain myself, but that was an amazing story. Very, very interesting. Thank you so much. Um, can you please elaborate on how it's being applied to the Dynex platform? What makes Dynex unique in your point of view?
Absolutely, good question. So let's step back a little bit, right? And let's look at the traditional blockchain. Obviously, everyone watching this AMA most likely knows exactly what a blockchain is, but nevertheless, let's explain it quite a bit. So we have blocks. Inside of those blocks are transactions. And the miner, if he finds a block, receives a block reward, right, according to a mission schedule, and he receives transaction fees. So typically, inherently, that actually also means that the block rewards are constantly decreasing. So in case of Bitcoin, for instance, we have after a certain period of time, we have a halving and miners receive half of the reward. In our case, we have a smooth emission schedule, and you see it here to the right. And after approximately 4.5 years, every block has been mined and you don't get any block rewards anymore. Now, most of the other coins, they bet on the fact that either the coin price goes up, right? Up and up and up in order to substitute this, or that there are so many transactioning happening that the transaction fees substitute it. Now, here, and that is actually what makes Dynex really unique, we also have a block fee and a solution reward. And I'm gonna get to this in the next slide a little bit. So the block fee and the solution reward is stemming from the Dynex Solve proof of useful work. So if you look on the right side, you have a customer. The customer has a computational problem, either because it's untrackable or he wants to have it fast, or for whatever reason, he comes to us, he has a machine learning problem, a constraint satisfaction problem, optimization problem, whatsoever. So he posts his computational job and says, okay, my job has a complexity of X, right? And then he says, okay, I want to book 500,000 Dynex chips, for example, right? And then he puts this job in, he sets the block fee, right? And then solution reward. The solution reward is a motivation for the miners to keep mining ongoing. And the block fee is a fee which on top for each and every block is being paid by him. So let's assume we have a mining reward of 250 Dynex. The customer says, okay, we set a block fee of 50 Dynex, then the miner will receive 300 Dynex for it. And then he buys and deposits Dynex. Obviously, we will have an underlying fiat conversion. And then that job is being posted and being managed by the Dynex malleable scheduler. There's a malloc system. And the malloc system itself prioritizes this, looks okay, schedules the jobs. Okay, miner number one, there's a new one. Here you get the information, and so on and so forth. And then the miners perform the computations. They receive in return the block reward, the transaction fees, the block fee, and the solution reward. And the interesting thing is, even, let's say in 5 years, when every block has been mined and there are no new block rewards anymore out there, then the contribution for the miner from the customers right, will be significant because the block fees, obviously, as there is natural competition, will drive up the rewards for the miners. So I think this is actually makes Dynex one of the really true, first of all, utility coins, but on the other side, also really one of the most sustainable and long-term business models. And if you look a little bit underneath of the hood, right, what's happening when the miners are actually running Dynex Solve, right? So what we have is we have basically a continued parameter tuning. So what does this mean? And I don't want to get too detailed, but if, and you know that the neuromorphic chips by design have very desirable features, and if or someone were able to build it in real time, you could actually put in any problem and it would instantly solve it. Now, with today's technologies, such a chip cannot be built, as we have discussed in the last AMAs and sessions and everywhere, but it can be simulated efficiently. Now, every simulation, as it's not the real technical thing, it's a simulation, requires parameters. And parameters are assumptions, right? And typically these are 6 parameters and they need to be tuned. And once they are tuned, right, then also the simulation solves any whatever complex problem in rapid time. So what's happening, for instance, with job number 3, right, is that currently the parameters are being fine-tuned. It's gonna get faster and faster and faster to the point that we have the optimal set of parameters for that type of problem. And once this is found, because this is important, typically the use case on our platform is recurring usage. And I'm gonna get to it a little bit later, but if a customer has a computational task, he's gonna use the Dynex platform over and over again. So he's gonna take a new problem, put it in, a new problem, but the problem type and structure usually stays the same. So once you have a tuned model, then he has basically a tool in his hands that says doing route optimization, right? And obviously the input variables change because there will be different things there and here, but nevertheless the problem is the same and he can feed it in and very, very quickly and rapidly find solutions to that. And that's actually the interesting part about what's happening really underneath of the hood.
So, long story short, you're saying that customers can use Dynex to run computations and miners solve them with their graphic cards and getting paid for that. That sounds like a win-win for everyone. That's great. Can you speak maybe about your customers?
So customers, obviously, not everyone allows us to speak about them, but in the meantime, as we have had another 10 weeks, I want to showcase 2 customers, and our approach is basically to work with customers, also to be able to make testimonials, right? Because currently we're just showing jobs, right? We are showing what has been solved, but people are wondering, what is it, right? I mean, we know we can use it for machine learning, and we know that artificial intelligence is a huge topic, and we know that basically virtually every top 2,000 company is facing intractable problems, right? But here I want to make it more graspable. We're working, for instance, one example is Kali Technology Solutions. So that's a company which is linking AI with architectural and computational designs. Super interesting. So basically, they're taking building information and doing modeling based on AI technology. Comes from the community. So you might have seen this use case somewhere discussed, right? So these are examples how that looks like. And they, for instance, have AI problems which they cannot not even solve in a proper time period. Usually it takes them 3-4 weeks, months sometimes. And now we're currently working with them and have these jobs being solved on our platform in minutes, right? Or another example is, for instance, the bioinformatics at the Center for Biodiversity Genomics, for example. So they are working with us now on protein folding, and it's called basically a maximum likelihood phylogeny. Very complex, but nevertheless, it's about protein folding, right? And also the same use case, computations usually take very, very long, even though they have very, very powerful equipment themselves. They will use the Dynex platform. We are currently exchanging data to do computations. And once we're ready, we can build nice case studies. We can talk about them. We can basically say, okay, this is what happened, and people will understand more and more and more what's the really true inherent value of Dynex.
That sounds great. I must say, personally, for me, protein folding is rather a complex subject, but certainly there is a market for it and rather big. The community asked if Dynex is seeing a potential ban of privacy coins as an issue.
Yeah, ban of privacy coins, heavily discussed. We currently have a legal opinion in the works. Currently, the opinion is more trending towards it's not really applicable if you are a true utility coin. As I mentioned before, yes, we are. But I also told the team to create a contingency plan. So in case there will be one, that we have plan in the shelf, so to say, where we can push the button and basically immediately transform our chain to a non-privacy structure, because the privacy structure is not really related to our proof of work model, so that can be changed quite easily.
Okay, that's a very nice answer. Thank you very much. Um, I remember that Dynex has been planning a marketing push. What is an update on that?
Yeah, so from the marketing push, so initially the plan was that the agency will address in a campaign 5 to 8 million potential customers. They started off with testing first, so basically testing different approaches, testing how do social media contents in this context work, what channels are working, which is better, is it Twitter, is it Telegram, and so on and so forth, to collect KPIs. Must say we have some serious question marks, to be totally honest, about the agency performance. We are not very happy about the visuals, we're not very happy about what happened. Everything is kind of slow, but we still want to collect those KPIs. We're going to make changes with respect to agency, and because everything that we do here at Dynex should be to the highest extent professional, but it will be helpful to have the KPIs to know at least which channel and where's the receptance and so on and so forth.
Yes, it makes sense to start investing in marketing only when different channels have been proven to be successful. Um, Guys, do you remember what I said last time? Let's start tweeting. Anyway, going back to mining, can Dynex be mined on mobile phones or even Raspberry?
Short answer, the code base is C++. Technically, obviously, it's possible. Would require us to build it. I mean, the easiest one would be probably Android, but to be totally honest, I mean, that would only be possible to win the solution. Lottery, as it's called in the community. Yeah, it is, but not really a priority for us right now.
That's more like a chip lottery then. The current roadmap ends with Dynex Marketplace. As I'm looking at it, we are curious what comes after.
I mean, and right, the Dynex Marketplace is gonna be a milestone for us, because that basically will manifest that we will have as Dynex a full self-service, even for the long tail, self-service platform, from computational to posting to mining to everything. But obviously, there's going to be following a phase of growing and scaling the operative business. But what's happening in parallel is obviously we have business development activities going on. They're not really, we cannot really put them on the roadmap, and we call it actually custom and opportunity based development, because sometimes there are opportunities which you cannot simply plan, but they are so important strategically that once they show up, you need to make decisions and go after that. I'm talking about strategic partnerships, technology partnerships, or maybe even integrations in other coins. I mean, we know there are the first forks coming out now, for example. Very interesting. And it's extremely important not to lose focus. and we will make this very cautious, right? We will not distract ourselves.
This sounds like more and more customers will be coming. Will there be a dedicated customer channel on Discord at one point too?
No, basically a dedicated customer channel on our Discord. We don't think that makes sense. Actually, it makes much more sense to have a dedicated and separated Discord for customers. Why? Because these are two different worlds, right? The miners is one type of people, but on the other side, the customer, right? The customer is not really interested in crypto. Customer wants computations, wants a serious, environment and platform. So we are currently working towards some more tailored communication, right? How we let the information flow there, how we can communicate with them, and I think the real question behind it was the Discord channel is more like sharing use cases, right? And that's what we are doing with testimonials.
That makes sense. There have been some concerns from users if Dynex could be used to attack other cryptocurrencies. What do you think about it?
Yeah, technically, yes, it could be used. Not getting into the details. From a practical perspective, no, it's not going to be used because we have the ethical committee. And how do we find it out? Especially cryptographic problems, right? They have a very, very unique fingerprint, and especially when they are large, because otherwise you cannot attack another coin. We will be able to identify and to prevent that.
That's great. So we don't have to be worried. But what about the security of Dynex blockchain itself? Is there a failover in case there is no work?
So currently, there is no such thing in place, but it is on the roadmap, and we actually like that input a lot of that user on Discord. Thank you very much. He had this idea, we put it on the roadmap, and it's actually in the works.
I don't want to be annoying, but what happens if there are no computing jobs available anymore?
Well, then we will work on currently unsolved computational problems, and those are available en masse. So the list of such problems is endless.
This all sounds good. And what about confidentiality? Don't customers share sensitive information with Dynex? Could this become a problem?
Well, this is a very, very good question. But you need to understand that the computation file itself basically doesn't help you. Because as long as you don't know how it has been generated in the first place and what to do with the solution, it's practically useless. So you can basically think of without having the keys to that file, you can let it compute, you can solve it, but you can do nothing with the solution. So that guarantees the confidentiality of jobs which are being handled on the Dynex platform.
Understood. There also have been some questions around the Dynex source codes. Are they public now, or what is the status with those?
That's one of my favorite topics. Obviously, we are big believers in open source. We want everything to be open source. We had the minor open source, didn't take long until it got exploited. We closed it as only the sorters or the minor, and always kept the reference implementation available. So everyone who is interested can have a look. How does this Dynex computation and this chip really work? And now we actually have a plan of doing staged open sourcing. So basically releasing almost everything required so people can optimize it, can read, can contribute, can understand, can play around with it, but without having the possibility to create harm.
That's amazing. This is a really good idea. Uh, we are really hoping to see that very soon. I remember the community voting about the next exchange. When is the listing going to happen?
Well, patience seems not to be your best friend. I mean, the voting for Gate and Max was in February, and expected duration approximately 3 months, so that would be May. Um, I cannot put a time stamp on it, but we passed evaluations already. We are negotiating, and we are extremely confident that this is gonna happen within the estimated time frame.
Okay, I guess we'll still have to wait a little longer. But anyway, as you know, patience is not my strength, and that's true. I really would like to know when the team goes public. We are all curious about it.
The ever repeating question. In order to make it better understandable, there are four considerations. Legal considerations, they are finished. So currently we are incorporating the Dynex Foundation in Liechtenstein. It was a long process. I don't want to get into the details, but we feel that this is the best legal environment suitable for Dynex. We have tax and intellectual property considerations. So basically, probably you don't know it, but when you file for intellectual property protection, you have to do things first and in order. Where do you put the IP box? How is the international tax structure done, etc. And also from an organizational perspective, right? How is the workspace organized? How do we bind all the people working for Dynex really to be with Dynex for the next few years and so on? So please be a little bit more patient. We are moving, things are progressing, but and then we're gonna be ready to share the details.
Ah, this is
This is
great.
great.
Thank you very much for all your answers. It was great. It was my pleasure hosting this AMA. I hope to see all of you at our next AMA. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating and listening to these very interesting answers. We really enjoyed it. We will make a recording available for everyone who couldn't join, and also the transcript for whoever prefers just to read it. I wish you all a wonderful day, and I can't wait to see all of you guys again. Have a good day. Bye bye.